Hello, girls. Welcome to your English literature class. Today, we are going to read and understand Lesson 3 TINE and the Faraway Mountain. This story is a true and adventurous story about a girl named Tine Meena from Arunachal Pradesh, India. Children, the story is written by Shikha Tripathi. So, watch this video carefully.
Before we begin with the reading and explanation of this lesson, let me introduce you all to the author Shikha Tripathi. This is Shikha Tripathi. She is one of India's most well-known travel writers. She writes about her travels to little-known places, the adventures she has had, and the people she meets there. So, children, open page number 25, lesson 3 Tine and the Faraway Mountain. Let's read and understand this lesson. In Italy, in the Mishmi hills of Arunachal Pradesh, young Tine Meena heard a wondrous call from the mountains in the distance. She was drawn to it, a sound only she could hear. Children, wondrous means wonderful or almost magical. Drawn to it means very interested in it. So, in Italy, in the Mishmi hills of Arunachal Pradesh, young Tine Meena could hear wonderful calls from the faraway mountains. She was very interested in those sounds that only she could hear. She heard it while she climbed trees. She heard it when she ran through the jungle. She heard it when she spent long days lying under the sun. Whooshu, the sound went whooshu. Ah, Tine would smile. What a wonderful life! So she could hear the sound whooshu whooshu every time while she climbed trees, ran through jungles, or spent days lying under the sun. And she would smile whenever she heard the sound whooshu whooshu. Children, whooshu was actually the sound of breeze. But one day her family moved out of Italy to the closest big town, Roing. Tine's world turned upside down. Children, Tine's world turned upside down means her life changed completely and she was upset. So, what happened? One day, her family decided to move out of Italy to the closest big town, Roing. Tine was very unhappy as she loved the jungle and especially the wondrous whooshu sound that she could hear. There was a school in Roing, but the whooshu had been louder in Italy. Tine wanted to return to her mountains again. So she trudged to school every day for 10 years, glancing wistfully at the mountains in the horizon. When she finally finished her schooling, Tine immediately applied to be a porter for army expeditions in the mountains. She would have to carry heavy loads and march over long distances. But women were not allowed to be porters in those days. So there was a school in rowing. Children, trudged means walked with slow and heavy steps because she did not want to do something. Wistfully means with great longing. Porter means a person who carries luggage and other heavy loads. Expeditions means journeys by a group of people, usually for a particular purpose. So, as I already told you, that there was a school in rowing, and she even got admission there. Who's that she? Tine. But the wushu sound was louder in Italy, as the mountains were close in Italy. Tine wanted to return back to her mountains again. So, what happened? Tine used to walk slowly and sadly down to school every day. Children, as I've already told you the meaning of trudged. When you don't want to go to school, you very sadly move, no? So, in the same way, she also very sadly and slowly used to walk down to school every day for 10 years. How many years, children? 10 years. As soon as she finished her schooling, she applied to be a porter. A porter is a person who carries luggage or heavy loads. So, she wanted to be a porter. She applied to be a porter for the army expeditions in the mountains. But unfortunately, there were some rules over there that women were not allowed to be porters in those days. Teeny did not let that shop stop her. She dressed as a boy and started to work, carrying nearly 25 kilos of luggage every day. A whole week passed before everyone realized that she was a girl disguised as a boy. So then, Tine, what she used to do? She did not let any rule stop her. She dressed up as a boy and started her work as a porter and carried 25 kilos of luggage every day. But after 1 week, all realized and came to know that she was a girl who was dressed up like a boy. The officers scolded Tine for breaking the rules, but they knew that Tine knew the route better than anyone else. So they allowed her to continue working. Her act would later help lift the ban on female porters. In the army, Tine worked on many expeditions and soon became a coordinator. It was on one of her expeditions as a coordinator that she met Dr. Romeo Meti. At that time, Dr. Meti was working to promote adventure sports in Arunachal Pradesh and immediately identified Tine's talent. You are a naturally gifted climber, he told her. You have the strength and the determination. Now all you need is technique. So what happened, children? The officers scolded her. Who they scolded? They scolded Tine and they shouted on her for breaking the rules. But they knew that Tine knew the route better than anyone else. So they allowed her to be a porter for them. Children, ban means a law that does not allow people to do something. So, because of Tine, going out of her way and becoming a porter, the rules were changed later. Okay, the ban was removed. Coordinator means someone who plans trips to the mountains. Adventure sports means exciting sports like mountaineering, whitewater rafting, and so on. Naturally gifted means someone who does something very well on their own without training. Determination means a strong desire to do something. So soon Tine became the coordinator in the army as she worked in many expeditions. And during one of her expeditions, do you know who she met? She met Dr. Romeo Matey. He was there working to promote adventurous sports. He saw Tine's talent and told her that she was a natural mountain climber and had the strength and desire to be a professional mountaineer. But she just needed a bit of technique. Children, technique means the correct way of climbing. Dr. Matey became Tine's mentor and she began her training as a mountain climber. The distant mountains still called her. Children, mentor means a person who helps or teaches and advises someone regularly. So Matey, he became Tine's mentor and taught her how to climb the mountains correctly. But the mountains that were far away at a distance were still calling out to her. They were calling out to Tine. But Tine did not know the name of the distant mountains till she watched the race for Everest, a film about the first climb of Mount Everest. Wushu became a roar now, and climbing Mount Everest became her dream. So, Tine, she never knew the name of that distant mountain till the time she watched the movie The Race for Everest. It was about the first climb of Mount Everest. And that wushu was the sound coming from Mount Everest. Children, you all know Mount Everest now? And now it became her dream to climb Mount Everest. That is the highest mountain. So, climbing Mount Everest became Tine's dream. After months of preparations, Tine finally reached the Everest base camp in Nepal. It was bitterly cold and the air was thin. Tine trained there for a few days to get accustomed to the harsh weather and then began her climb. The climb was difficult. Children, base camp means a safe camp area, usually at the foot of a mountain. People start climbing the mountain from this point. Okay? Air was thin means there wasn't enough air there to breathe properly because of the height of the mountain. Accustomed to means used to. So, after months of hard work and preparations, Tine reached the base camp in Nepal. That is from where she had to start climbing the mountain. It was very cold there and even not enough of air to breathe. properly. So, for a few days, Tine underwent a training to get used to the harsh weather, that is, the bad weather, and then began her climb. But the climb was very difficult. Now, the next page. It was divided into four sections so that the climbers could take rest at different camping points while journeying to the top of the mountain. But by the time Tine and her companion Chering Sherpa reached the second camp, the weather had grown worse. Do you want to go ahead? Chering asked. So, their climb to Mount Everest was divided into four sections. How many sections, children? Four sections. So that they could take rest at different camping points while heading towards the mountains. But as Tine and her companion, Chering Sherpa, reached the second camp, the weather became worse, that is, very bad. Children, companion means a person with whom you spend a lot of time. So, then Chering asked Tine that would you want to continue your climb? Let's see what Tine replied. I don't think I will get another chance to do this. Tine replied. She could hear the musical whooshu growing louder and louder. It almost hypnotized her. Tine and Chering somehow managed to reach their final camp. Just as they were about to take rest, the stormy wind blew their tent and supplies away. Hypnotized means affected her like a magic spell. Supplies means things like food, torches, first aid kit, and so on that is carried by a mountaineer to help them survive on their journey. So, Tine, then she replied, she said that she would not get another chance to climb the Mount Everest. Now she could hear the whooshu sound more clearly and more loudly than before. The whooshu sound was music to her ears and almost hypnotized her, means affected her like a magic spell. Anyhow, they managed to reach their final camp, and as they were going to rest, the storm blew away their tents and food supplies. They had to spend the night in one borrowed tent, and when they set off for the final climb the next day, all Tine and Chering had was a packet of noodles. Let's share half of it, Chering suggested. Tine nodded her head, smiling determinedly. If we make it alive, we will eat the other half. So then they had to spend their night in one borrowed tent and had only one packet of noodles with them. How many packets of noodles? Only one packet. So Chering suggested Tine that let's share half of the noodles packet before we set off for the final climb. Tine nodded her head, means she shook her head and said yes. And the other half we will eat when we finish our climb and return alive. The higher they climbed, the stronger the wind grew, For every 2 steps they took, it sent them reeling back a step. It shrieked and howled, whispering dread into their ears and urging them to return. But Tine could only hear the magical tune of wushu. So they pushed ahead fearlessly and continued to climb to the top. Reeling back means, children, moving backwards very unsteadily, as if someone is pushing you. Dread means great fear and uncertainty about what could happen. Urging means trying to persuade or make someone do something. Okay? So they finally set off the to the highest mountain. The higher they climbed, the stronger the wind blew. If they took one step ahead, the wind sent them reeling back one step back. The wind was so bad that it kept making loud noises and whispered great fear into their ears, trying to make them go back. But Tine, she was very strong. She could not hear anything. She pretended that she couldn't hear anything and only heard the magical sound of wushu. So, children, and she continued to push ahead, and finally she reached to the top. Finally, at 10:45 a.m. on 9th May 2011, teenage efforts were rewarded. She summited Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world, the first woman from the northeast of India to have done so. She had found her faraway mountain and was one with the sound that had called her all her life. Children, summited means climbed to the top of a mountain. So finally, at 10:45 a.m. on 9th May 2011, Tine submitted to the top of Mount Everest. As I've already told you, summited means climb the top of a mountain, which was the highest mountain in the world. She was the first woman from the northeast of India to climb Mount Everest. And finally, she had found her faraway mountain and was with the sound that she heard all her life. So, children, the moral of the story is that you need to work very hard to achieve your dreams, and you have to be determined and confident no matter whatever hurdles come your way. So, remember, hard work always pays off. Children, I will be posting the question answers and hard words of this lesson. Please write them in your copies and learn them. Thank you.